The hottest team in the city, Moose, the hottest team in the NBA, your New York Knicks. And it's been almost a decade since we've been able to say that the Knicks are the hottest team in the NBA. 7 in a row, all wins against teams that are either in the playoff hunt or trying desperately to make a push to get into at least even the play-in tournament. And you know what? We've been changing the expectations around the Knicks all season long. And it's not to be unfair to them. It was just because you have to respect what we're seeing is legit. A team that ranks third in defensive efficiency. Randall shooting 40% from three. Barrett taking over in the second half last night, by the way, and was great. He's become this 3-and-D guy, perfectly suited for today's NBA, and has had a breakout season. And, you know, there was a thought that if the only way the Knicks could win a round in the playoffs was going to be either the play-in tournament or the 4-5 game, right? But with the way they're playing now, is that true? I don't know. The Knicks are hitting their peak right now, and they're going to go into the postseason with a coach who's in the conversation for Coach of the Year, with the most improved player in the league, and with a commitment to defense and a confidence in themselves that is unwavering. Is it crazy to think that a team with all of those components, Moose, couldn't win a playoff series even against one of the top seeds in the Eastern Conference?
No, it's not out of the realm of possibility. There's a couple of things. First off, I mean, the unmitigated love that I have for Thibodeau, Randall, Barrett, their development, or his development, Barrett, that should be, what Randall has developed into this year. Here's what I love more so than anything else is like Thibodeau and the Knicks are doing it differently than everybody else, right? I mean, everybody else in the NBA, the minutes police, the load management, Julius Randle's logging minute after minute after minute. You know what? Sometimes guys can get better with playing time, right? So sometimes actually guys thrive on playing time. Sometimes guys actually, you know what, take their game to another level because you lean on them. Because everybody and their mother, you know, early on in this season was saying, you can't play Barrett this much. You can't play Julius Randle this much. Here we are looking at the Knicks. We're coming down the home stretch. They've got 13 games to go in the NBA regular season. Randall's still logging a ton of minutes. He was an all-star in the Eastern Conference. He's by far the Knicks' best player. He's turned himself into a foundational piece for this organization. And Thibodeau has turned around this team and this organization. And Thibodeau did it his way. So, you know what? Give Tom Thibodeau and his coaching staff all the credit in the world for the job that they have done with this team and how this team has found themselves. Because, yes, it's great to say on this Wednesday, the Knicks are the hottest team in the NBA. Repeat after me. Wow. The Knicks are the hottest team in the NBA. I love it. I can't say it enough. I love watching this team and how the expectations for this team, for sure. You look at it, we've talked about the fact that you don't want to be 6, 7, or 8, right? You don't want to be part of the play-in tournament. You want to be in that 4 or 5 seed. Could the Knicks give the Philadelphia 76ers a series? For sure. Could they give the Milwaukee Bucks a series? For sure. Could they give a healthy Brooklyn Nets team a series? Well, who knows when the Brooklyn Nets will actually be healthy, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Could they give them a series? Yeah, I don't think this Knicks team is all of a sudden going to fold up the tents and say, you know what, see you next year. It's been a fun run. No, they play with the tenacity. They play with defense. You've heard people time and time again, the Knicks are a pain in the rear end to go up against because they're well coached, they're well schooled, they defend possession in, possession out. They're not the most talented or gifted team in the NBA, but they've got a will to them that draws you to them and makes them very, very appealing to watch. They almost will themselves at times, and right now they're as hot can be. So could they, Maggie, give those teams a series? Yeah, I think they could. Do I think they'd eventually lose to the Milwaukee Bucks? Probably. Do I think they'd lose to the 76ers? Yes. Do I think they'd lose to the Brooklyn Nets? For sure, but right now, I have a lot better feeling about this Knicks team should they be the 6th seed or should they be, you know, facing one of those upper echelon teams in the Eastern Conference than I have in quite some time. You know, if they're the 4 or the 5 seed, which is where they're trending right now,
right.
You know, are they going to win that series? Yes, I think they're going to win that series. I think they're going to march on to the second round.
Sure.
And it would be an unbelievable accomplishment. And, you know, you joke around, bust my chops all the time about that 17 Yankee team, right, that went on that great run. Well, you know what? Because it was unexpected. And I think what's made this so enjoyable to watch is the unexpected nature of it. we weren't expecting all that much. We were expecting maybe, see exactly the foundation, see who's in, who's out with Tom Thibodeau year number 1. To play at this level, to play this well is so unexpected coming into the year. It's made it that much more enjoyable as a Knicks fan.
Well, think of what the expectations were going into the season for the Knicks. Don't embarrass yourself. Yeah. Like, that was literally the bar. Can we please not have an embarrassing season? We thought they were going to lose a lot of games because, honestly, with the roster they were putting out and after what we saw Randall do year 1 here in New York, what Barrett's rookie season looked like, I mean, there was not a lot of reasons to have tons and tons of hope with this team. And they've done it themselves. Yeah, it's the team that we least expected, and I think that's why it's a team that everyone has fallen in love with, no doubt about it. But as the expectations for them are rising because, well, they can really only go one way. When the expectation is don't embarrass yourself and then they put out what they're putting out now, yes, the expectations are going to go up. And I just see a team that is, I don't want to say peaking because that would, kind of insinuate that there's a cliff coming or something on the other side, but they are definitely hitting their peak. And I'll say even if we back it up before they even get to the postseason, which is now like a certainty, even this West Coast trip that we've been talking about, this total juggernaut of a West Coast trip that's going to happen right before their last 3 games of the season, I don't even feel like that is as daunting as it may have seemed. And maybe that's, my recency bias of, having them go to Dallas and beat the Mavericks, and maybe that's it. But I don't know. I just don't look at that West Coast swing now as something that's like doomsday for the Knicks, or where they're just going to, have to be fighting. Sure, they're going to be fighting, but where it's something that could sink them and drop them all the way down to like the 8th seed. No, I think they're going to be competitive, and if they can just keep their heads, and keep going here, and I'm not expecting them to keep winning every single game, but if they can keep going and keep on the winning, more, I'd say more wins than losses, but no kidding. But if they can just sort of keep this up, even if it doesn't always translate into a win when you're playing the Phoenixes and the Clippers and the Lakers at full strength and all of that, I mean, listen, I think they're going to keep going they're going to go into the postseason with even more confidence, depending on this West Coast trip. But I'm not intimidated. If I were the Knicks, I wouldn't be as intimidated by this West Coast trip as I think we were maybe a couple weeks ago, saying, hey, you better stockpile wins at home because this one's going to be a doozy.
Right, because when you're making that, you're almost insinuating that they're a fraudulent team, right? That they're going to get exposed at some point in time, that they're not as good as their record is. And the Knicks are 5 games over the 500 mark. We're talking about this Knicks team like they're 22 games over the 500 mark, which they are not. But it is the unexpected nature, and they're not fraudulent, right? So, I mean, Maggie, they might not have a good West Coast swing. They might lose some of those games. They're not going to embarrass themselves. They're not going to go into a game where, they get completely exposed and they're getting their doors blown off. I mean, those games do happen, but my point is that this is real. Lena, if you're a Knicks fan, this is real. This is not kind of, smoke and mirrors. What you're watching night in and night out. I can't wait, till 8 o'clock tonight when the Knicks take on the Hawks. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I think it's appointment television when you're watching this team. It's been a long time since I've been able to say that, Maggie, because more often than not, recent years, it's been, well, I can't wait for the Knicks to lose another one, or I'm looking ahead to the June NBA draft. Who are the Knicks going to end up with? You know what? Not this year, and I'm great with it, and I love it, and I enjoy watching this team. You can watch this team and say, you know what? They are real. Yes, this is a team that has found themselves. They've won 7 in a row. Yes, Randall's for real. Yes, R.J. Barrett's developing year number 2. Yes, you have a coach in Tom Thibodeau that actually has a clue with his staff of what they're doing in game planning night in and night out. He's a basketball lifer. Yes, adding guys like Derrick Rose and, Burks has stepped in, and Bullock on occasion on nights. They've dealt with injuries, whether it be Mitchell Robinson. They've dealt with the very fact of Obi Toppin being a massive disappointment year number 1. Emmanuel Quickley has been very good for this team. All of the storylines that we've talked about this Knicks team has come to the point of this is the hottest team in the NBA right now. I'm not telling you they're not a championship team, but they're a playoff team. And their team right now, Maggie, as we opened up the conversation this morning, where, yes, you could think about winning a playoff round. Yes, you cannot be afraid of taking on the Philadelphia 76ers or the Milwaukee Bucks because of the way, the style, and the tempo in which this team does play, because they're a pain in the butt. as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, teams don't want to go up against the Knicks. They really don't. They play hard, possession in, possession out. Thibodeau is a guy that is a master in terms of end of game situations, putting his team in the right point to try and be successful. Sometimes they have been, sometimes they're not. We've seen them come back in games. That Brooklyn Net game being one where they were getting embarrassed in the first half. They made it a game at the end of it. So you've enjoyed this team through now 59 games that they've played up until this point in time, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And now you can put the expectations of, yes, they're going to be a playoff team. Yes, I could see them winning a round depending on the matchup in the opening round. All of those things are true. And if you're a Knick fan, for the first time in a while, Maggie, I can look at this squad. I'm proud to be a Knick fan. I'm excited to watch Knick basketball. And I don't think that this is genuine. This is real, what we're watching night in and night out. And it's an absolute joy to watch.
Yeah, we talk about Thibodeau, like right guy for the right team. I would also say, right season to play these guys this kind of minutes. Having a 72-game season and having 13 games to go as opposed to 23 games to go definitely changes it. And even being able to lean on Julius Randle when he was definitely had a thigh or a knee or whatever it was, that seems that he's kind of worked his way out of it. It's that is also a part of this too. Taking advantage of that. The fact that you are, you have 10 fewer games than you normally would and try to maybe lean on your guys, even though he does that all the time, right? That's kind of like Thibodeau's MO. The starters are the ones who get the heavy minutes, and he's making guys earn it. So it works out for them in a couple different ways, but definitely breaks right here for the Knicks. And you mentioned it, like, is it that crazy to think that they would give the 76ers or the Bucks a run? I don't think it is. Now, the Nets is a different thing because we get the news yesterday, and these are the two things that make me worried here about the Nets. When you're talking about James Harden, you're saying these kinds of words, out indefinitely. And then also Steve Nash saying back to square one in terms of his rehab. That's not all that confident. If it wasn't that bad, Moose, they would call this day to day, not out indefinitely. And they would not be saying things like back to square one with rehab. I mean, they would at least be trying to put a much prettier face on this or try to put a much glossier shine on what's going on with James Harden. No, they're prepping you for don't expect to see James Harden for a really long time. And I think the question with the Nets where this becomes, first of all, we've never seen this before. This has never happened where the top three guys on a team have missed double-digit games in a season and then gone on to win a title. Literally never seen it before. ESPN Stats and Info coming through with the facts there. Never happened before. So you can't say that there's no muscle memory here to be like, oh, remember when so-and-so did that like 15 years ago and they came and won the title, or 5 years ago? It doesn't happen. It never has happened. I just wonder, if it's 2 out of the 3, can they still win the title?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I think it depends on which 2 or 3. I think it really depends.
Well, right now, Kyrie would be one of them because, knock on wood, he's healthy.
Right, he's healthy, and who knows? I mean, and he's been able to stay healthy.
Amazing.
I look at the Harden news, and my question would be, well, square one for what? Like, square one, because his initial hamstring injury was not nearly as serious as Kevin Durant's, right? As we come to know, because Durant, when they went through imaging, he had blood and this and that, so it was a pretty severe hamstring injury. So my question to the Brooklyn Nets for clarity would be, what square one are we talking about? Are we talking about square one to where he hurt the hamstring more significantly than the initial hamstring injury because he came back into a game, retweaked it, was out for 4 or 5 games, was in the game for 4 or 5 minutes, retweaked the hamstring, was out of the game, then it was shut down for 10 days, then it was returned to practice. He'll be back in 3 or 4 practices, and now we get this news. Right. So I guess I'm curious about, back to square one, Maggie, the severity of the hamstring injury when we're talking about to square one. Are we talking about the initial no, because it really plays in to where we're talking about, because hamstrings can be really tricky. So because we've now had 3 issues now with James Harden with the same hamstring. We had the initial tweak, we had the come back into a game, the retweak, and then the ramp up now and the tweak again. So now a setback once again. So when we go all the way back to square one, is square one worse than the initial square one, or is square one the same when he initially hurt that hamstring? If you could follow that story, it might be a little bit confusing.
You're like the beautiful mind gif right now. It's a tweak, it's a retweak, and it's a setback. That's
so
bad.
I mean, that's all we've been talking about with Harden. Yeah, my other question would be this: is what would lead you to believe when you look at 2 of these superstars that now have been hurt, right? In Durant and James Harden. what would lead you to believe that now they're going to be able to stay healthy, completely healthy, for a 2-month playoff run and not have any kind of an injury setback? That would be the other question I'd have, Maggie. Can they win with 2 of the 3? Yeah, I think it depends on which 2 of the 3. If Kyrie is one of them, and you have Kyrie and James Harden, I guess you could win it.
It's a pretty lethal combo.
It's a pretty lethal combo. It's difficult when you look at, especially with the way that Philadelphia does defend and the 76ers, and now without LaMarcus Aldridge, how are they going to handle Joel Embiid when you look at specific matchups? How are they going to handle Giannis with the Milwaukee Bucks? So those are interesting matchups where could you give the Brooklyn Nets a good chance to win the series? Yeah, but I don't think they're not going to be the overwhelming favorites if they don't have all 3 on the court. My question is, if say for argument's sake, all 3 are healthy to start the playoffs, if they couldn't stay healthy in the regular season, now all of a sudden I believe that they're going to stay healthy for the postseason, and we get to the chemistry angle, Maggie, where who was it that came on? I think it was Ryan McDonough who joined us and said, they're going to need 10 or 12 games, to, at the minimum, to work their way through some things in the regular season.
How about 7? Will 7 games be enough? Yeah, because that's what they're going to get.
I know, but that 7 games, Maggie's a long time ago. I mean, that is a long time ago. So now you're going to throw this all into the mix and say, okay, Nash, go make it work. There's certainly enough talent. Now the question is, are they all going to be healthy and ready to go come playoff time after the Harden news yesterday?
I feel like the expectations for both the Knicks and the Nets were at such different places before the season began, rightfully so. Nets expectations, championship. Knicks expectations, they said, don't embarrass yourself, go out there, get after it. Now, though, where we are, I feel like the Knicks expectations from where they started are going up, and I feel like the Nets are, in a way, kind of going down. I don't know if they can win a title because I love the Nets. I love watching the Nets. I love watching Harden. I love the trade. I love Kyrie. I think they are so incredibly gifted. I love the role players. I think the bench has done a great job. I think Sean Marks has done a great job. Steve Nash is holding his own. I'm a big Nets believer. I just don't know. I don't know how they do this. I really don't. The whole flipping the switch with guys and if they even are healthy or how much can they actually play, even if they are all cleared to play. I don't see it. And I think it's my own fault because I've never seen it. So I can't conjure how this could actually work when you get to either the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. I don't see it.
No, I get the pessimism because with the Harden news, how could you not be pessimistic?
He's such a big part of this.
They're still arguably the 3 most talented offensive players that you've seen on the court in the last 20 years together. I mean, that's
no
it.
Kidding.
I mean, so talent does reign supreme in the NBA. So I get that.
My question isn't even chemistry. It's just if they're not all healthy, I think they need all 3 of them to win. The question is, if they're healthy, they're going to be an absolute beast to take down. They just are in the Eastern Conference. I still believe that. I'm not going to. My concern is whether or not they're healthy and whether or not they can stay healthy for that long playoff run and be able to log the necessary minutes, play the games. If they have a series that goes a little bit longer than expected, how does the bodies bounce back? Listen, Kevin Durant has barely played basketball in the last 2 years. I mean, he's barely played. I mean, that's it. I mean, James Harden is a basketball lifer. I mean, he is. If James Harden could drag his one leg onto the court, he'd do it to go play a game. I mean, I don't doubt that. So, so that's bad news when you look at Brooklyn. It's the unquestioned offensive and just brilliant talent that all 3 have that are going to be very, very difficult to go up against. So you've got the Harden news.